So much, Brandy. Thank you, everyone, and welcome one more time. I will start our discussion today with a quick interview with you, Madam President. We are truly honored that you've decided to join us. I've been following your schedule. It is quite hectic, and I know you and all of our panelists are joining us in the middle of the night, so we really appreciate you. The very first question that I have for you is as follows. This week, we're celebrating the accomplishments and resilience of women. As a sixth president of Mauritius, you've reached the pinnacle of leadership success, not only in the area of women leadership in general. When you think back on your career, did you see yourself in the role you are in today, or did you make changes along the path? Your mic is muted.
Unmute. Thank you so much for having me and for the kind invitation. And I must say, I'm very appreciative, Maya, of all the follow-up you have made. It shows really true professionalism, and I really appreciate that. And also greetings to all the fellow panelists. Of course, today we're celebrating a very important day for all of us. And we know that, women leadership, women empowerment, and women rights were not given at all. So we've had to fight for it. And I'm glad that every day we name the day, the 8th of March, because it's a day that's worth naming, because we're still fighting. The fight is not over. And in fact, in the course of our discussion, you will see that we have regressed over the past year. And all the gains that have been made since the Beijing conference in 2015, in 1995, we have moved backward. And this is something that we have to take stock and move ahead and make sure that we leave no one behind, as is so much said. I've had a very eclectic career. And I started as an academic. I became a first female professor at the university. And I became also a first entrepreneur to have translated my research work into a business. This is second nature to many people in the United States. But where I come from, where there is no safety net at all, protecting entrepreneur, least of all protecting a women entrepreneur in the area of science, this was a big risk to take. And then all of a sudden, the world of politics found me. And so I became, again, what I increasingly refer to as being an accidental president. And if I look at my career, if I were to put my finger on one important aspect of my life, is passion. I have been passionate about science since a very young age. In fact, I did science not knowing what to do with it. But I did it because I enjoyed it, and I still do. For many years, when I look back on my career, I find that this is something that we have to highlight all the time. We have to be passionate about what we do, because when we are passionate about what we do, we can only do it right. And the promotion and the money will come after. But there's nothing worse, Maya, than going to work every day in a position that you simply hate. So might as well make that position become your passion and make your work become your hobby. So that's what I did. But at the same time, there was something that you can't compromise on. You can't compromise on excellence. And I have always said, and I will say it again, of course, I may sound like a broken record, but excellence knows no gender. And this is something that I like to bring home to all the girls when I speak to them, when they start whining, all the facilities on there, drive for excellence. And that knows no gender. And the other thing that, there are no cutting corners is hard work. There is no substitute for hard work. So when you put this together, I think you have a very, very nice recipe for success. And the road, that road on, towards success, to me is still a journey. You're never there. It becomes something to ponder on, because you'll find many, many hurdles. It will not be an easy track, but all you have to do is keep on persevering, and you'll get there in the end. So that's my journey.
Absolutely. So I hear a passion, excellence has no gender, and pick a project that you really feel strong about. And I think that is important. We have many students joining us today, so Facebook Live in particular. So this is definitely something they can utilize as they're working towards their future careers. My second question has to do with you being a high-profile leader. And that comes with challenges. What has been one of your greatest challenges and how have you worked through it?
I will start this answer, Maya, by just citing an anecdote because we are in the academic world. I was the deputy vice chancellor at the university. And occasionally my secretary would tell me, ma'am, I've got to go to, to fetch my daughter from school, or I have to go to do some shopping. So I say, carry on. And if the phone rings, I will pick it up. And many a times the phone rings and I pick it up and I always gets referred to as Mr. And one day somebody had the cheek of saying, are you the secretary of Professor Gurib-Fakim? And I said, just wait, hang on, sir, I'll pass you on to the professor. And when I started talking, I say, this is again, so many assumptions that people make, that when you are at that position of leadership, you always have to be a male. When you're a professor, you certainly cannot be a woman. So I think these are things that we need to work on, right? This issue of patriarchy, again, is in degrees, because in some countries, patriarchy may not be there, or to a lesser degree, but it is still there. And that pecking order that we get all the way up to the position of head of state, it will always be there. So this I think the first thing that you have to grapple with is patriarchy, is the pecking order, and also all the time that I have been within science, being entrepreneurship, there is that notion of you are a woman. When you're dealing with an older man, it's always down there, girl, down. So that's always there. So I think, again, the way you rise above all this is stay focused on what you do, drive for excellence, get good results. And when the promotion comes based on the face value of your portfolio and nothing else. So always, produce the best, give the best of yourself. Because if you adopt this attitude, you simply can't go wrong. Having said this, when you are at the position of head of state, already you are in a very, very big minority, because, everywhere, in fact, in the United States, you've only this year got your vice president. And so there are very, very few ministers. So making yourself heard is an issue when you're a professor, when you're an entrepreneur. When you are a head of state, they have no choice but to listen to you. But still, in some instances, you feel that they're making, they're making you a favor by listening to you. So these are issues that as women, we have to grapple with. But at the end of the day, it's the content that you bring to the table, your speech, your messaging, your voice, how you speak, how you behave yourself, and how you pick yourself up. This eventually commands respect. And there's one thing that we bring to the table, Maya, and this has come up very, very massively last year during the COVID. The female leadership is totally different from male leadership. We lead from behind. We add value to members of the team. We are empathetic. We listen. And this is something which is so, so, so important. We listen. And when I was in office, I learned from my mistake. And this is, again, where many leaders fail, because they never learn from the mistake, be it through sheer arrogance, because the ego comes in the way. But as women, we tend to listen. We tend to be more pastoral in the way we lead. And also, as a scientist, I can tell you, those female leaders who had some background, who had good training, and we saw how Angela Merkel, actually navigated through the pandemic, how composed she was, and also she was a scientist. I think the way we think as scientists, we are Cartesian in our approach. We take decision on advice, and these are key messages to take home, is we listen to sound advice, to the scientific discipline, to science, we listen to them, and to the scientists. We are empathetic. People who die just didn't become part of the statistics. We use the death to make it matter. And we made sure that the families knew that those who died, they didn't die for no reason. They mattered. And this is female leadership, I think. And this is where when we talk about gender, we need to bring on the way female lead, which is completely different to the way men lead. But one thing advice I have to give to young girls who are listening to me today is, when you are at leadership position, please do not change to become a man. Stop wearing gray or black or white. Be colorful, be proud to be a woman. There's nothing much more exciting than to be a woman and to make yourself being listened to.
Absolutely. Actually, female leaders are leaders from the heart and leaders of empathy. And it does appear that at times it's almost as if we have to suppress our strength in order not to be perceived as overly aggressive. So I love that advice that you give to especially young audience members that are listening to us. You can still be feminine, you can still be beautiful and wear bright colors while being strong and while being that leader with strength and empathy.
Yeah, just one thing, Maya, as well. You mentioned one word, aggressive. This is something that you'll come up all the time when you're a woman leader. You will always be aggressive when you are raising your voice to make a point. You will be feisty. You will be, difficult. You will, these are epithets which are very often associated with women. And this is something that we have to fight against. And this is unacceptable because when a man raises his voice, he's perceived to be a leader, to be strong. But when a woman raises voice, she's aggressive. So this is simply not acceptable. And as a community of women, we have to work on that.
Absolutely. Completely agree. Well, our third question, maybe a bit more difficult. What do you believe is the single greatest obstacle to social justice on an international level? And how can we overcome it? And I say it's difficult because there's so many obstacles to social justice. But if you were to pick one,
I would use two. I will come up with two social injustices. One of it, of course, is inequality. And we have seen how big a scourge this has proven to be, at least over the past year. The chasm which is existing now between the have and the have-nots. And this, to me, is very, very corrosive. And what is worse is that now with the power of social media, those who they are the have-nots, they will know what exactly they're missing. And I think this is, to me, terrible, really, really a disgrace to the human race to see that level of inequality. The second inequality that I think will matter very soon to all of us is climate injustice. And climate injustice, especially from the continent I hail from, Africa, we haven't polluted, we haven't emitted greenhouse gas emission, and yet we will bear the brunt of the impact of climate change. And if you go even smaller to the country I come from, an island, many islands are bound to disappear, and because of the rising sea level. So I think this is again where, Maya, we call for a multilateral action. We call for multilateralism. We call for the power of institutions at the global level to make it happen so that we can see that climate justice happening, so that, in the spate of other pandemic, because we are not out of the woods just yet, because what is going to happen very soon, Maya, is that the climate change pandemic, if I may use the word, will soon make the COVID look like child play. And this is not something that many leaders do not think about, and yet it is here, it's latent, and it's going to happen very soon.
And I think as a global community, we have such a strong responsibility to come up with plans and come up with solutions. And I think this is where maybe those empathetic leaders from the heart, female leaders, will play a pivotal role. So one can hope. Our last question for you has to do with the fact that our audience is quite diverse, but they have one shared interest, and that's why they're here with us today. And their shared interest is supporting and advancing women's leadership. We have many of our students and young women in our audience. What parting thoughts do you have for them on how they can best do this, pursue that female leadership?
To get more females at a certain level, to get more female leaders, we need to get more sisterhood of women. And I will cite to you Madeleine Albright. It may again sound like a broken record, but I think what she said is very true, is still true today, is that there is a special place in hell for those women who do not help women. Women tend to disparage each other more than men do. And there is no need for that. I think when women have to realize that if we are going to rise, if we are going to see women out there, we have to all rise together. Otherwise, we will all fall together. So let us really develop that community, that sisterhood amongst ourselves, show solidarity, because we don't see that among women. So let us make sure that when we see a woman rising, we help her. We make sure that she's up there, because when a woman is a leader, when a woman is a political leader, she will be able to pull others along with her. And when we are out there at that table, this is when we will be able to make policy changes. Again, something that we have to draw the attention today: women in leadership position is not the same as women in power. Women in power are those women who can really make material changes to the laws. At the end of the day, institutions and the laws are only places where we will turn to when we have trouble, we have problems, we have challenges. So to bring these women to that level, we need to encourage her. Let us all take each other by the hand. Let us take that young girl by the hand. Let us build her self-confidence. Let us tell her that she can do anything, because precisely she's capable of doing anything. So that's my parting thoughts for you, is that let us build that community of women, and we know we can do it, and we can be the change that this world needs to see.
Thank you so much, Madam President. Your story is a story of inspiration. You overcame so many challenges. You're definitely a career path to follow. Thank you for inspiring us this morning. I know it's getting very late your time. If you're able to stay for the audience questions, we would appreciate that. If not, thank you again for honoring us with your presence.
I can take a few questions, Maya, before I go. That's fine.
Sure. Jenny, do we have any questions from Madam President that she can address in the forum?
Just one question right now we have is, the theme of International Women's Day this year is Choose to Challenge. And thinking about your life and career, what are your thoughts on where you have had to challenge?
I have challenged the status quo. I have never walked the usual path, the well-trodden path. I created my own. And for that, of course, I got a few knocking. I'll just give you a very small example. I chose to work on traditional knowledge, herbal medicine. And can you imagine 30 years ago, when that was only a small wave? Now it's a tsunami which has taken over the world. We all want to be treated by, of course, the green medicine and everything green. But when I started, it was completely anathema to the world. So I chose to do that because I saw these women out there who really trusted and believed in what they were practicing. So I walked that path. I created my own. And so that's what I have to say to people, just like what Einstein said, don't be led by the crowd. It will take you to a position X. Just go with your imagination. It will take you many, many places. So that's what we have to do, is never follow the crowd, create your own path. But at the end of the day, what I said earlier on is still true. Enjoy what you do and be passionate about it. That's what I challenge.
Thank you so much. We've had a few other questions come in. How can men best support, encourage, and empower women?
We are talking increasingly about gender. So gender means both men and women. And you need the man, you need the father, you need the uncle, you need the grandfather. I was lucky to have had a great cheerleader in the name of my father. And so we need them all along. And also we find that when men sometimes mentor women, these women, they can make, they can move mountains. But we need the presence, we need the leadership, we need, of course, what they can bring to the table. And more importantly, we need them to listen. Because this is, again, where there's a problem, because men can be dismissive and they don't listen to that. But so ask them to listen, make our case so that they can help precisely change the laws. And this is where we come out winners at the end.
Thank you so much. I can tell from the questions we have coming in that you're really inspiring a lot of people today with your words and your experience. The next question is, Madame President, did you have a woman or a group of women to contribute to your own success, or did you feel alone while you were blazing this trail?
That's the downside of it. You are always alone. I benefited from the experience. I stood on all women's shoulders when I published the database on herbal medicine. So I benefited from their experience, from their wisdom, and I'm still grateful to them today that they were very happy to share this with me. In fact, I did not keep that knowledge for myself or patented anything. I put them back in the public domain so that it becomes, of course, prior art vis-a-vis the World Intellectual Property Organization. So I stood on their shoulders. But at the end of the day, while you're forging ahead, this is something that you have to, we have to interiorize. You are alone. And the higher you go, and there is a saying that says that it's very lonely at the top. Yes, it is. But this is where you actually draw from your own inner strength. And your own inner strength is you know who you are, and you don't have to read the newspapers to know who you are. So just stay focused and dream big, but set yourself goals. You can't go wrong.
Wonderful. And there's a question about climate change that's come up here. Madam President, do you think that climate change adaptation is something that could save Mauritius or the rest of the planet?
Definitely, we're talking climate change adaptation for countries like my own, we're a small country. We're talking about climate mitigation for those which have been polluting. Now we have many players. I'm not pinpointing anyone because there are now many players. We are living increasingly in a multipolar world where there are, of course, many areas of leadership and, of course, of many areas are emerging. But at the end of the day, we will need to actually there's one thing I will just digress one little bit here. We increasingly talk about climate change. We increasingly talk about saving the planet. My God, we're not saving the planet. We are saving our own livelihoods on this planet. The planet, nature doesn't need us. In fact, nature showed us very, very clearly last year when all the animals started taking over our cities. So we are an expendable species. What we have to ensure is that we tell ourselves that we are very much part of that ecosystem. We cannot dominate nature. We have to respect her. And the sooner we realize that we are part of that ecosystem, the better it's going to be for us, and the better that we will ensure our survival on this planet. So let us all work as a community of people, of scientists, of various stakeholders to ensure that we ensure our own survival, because make no mistake, nature doesn't need us.